OTB AM.
Right, time for the papers this morning. We're starting with otbsports.com. This is the headlines. It's where, not if, Aaron Connolly should start for Ireland. An opinion piece from Cian Fahey there. And we also have There's an Omerta in boxing. Has Daniel Kinahan's role in the sport really changed? This is last night, Kieran Cunningham from The Star talking to the lads. And the OTB Brief this morning, which is a podcast you can subscribe to and get your morning sports fix delivered to whatever podcast app you're using, i.e. the OTB Sports app, which you can download from the Play Store. Just search OTB Sports. Free, gratis and for nothing, a roundup of everything that's coming up in the day's sport for you.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Irish Independent this morning, Ger. Palace romp puts Reds on brink of ending their 30 years of heartache. Klopp's men will claim the Premier League title tonight if City fail to beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. A picture of Mo Salah, who came back from being left out of the game against Everton over an injury concern, and he delivered an assist and a goal, and everybody looked like they were in sync in that front three as well. And just continually worried times about the situation involving the IRFU and the players' union at the moment, because obviously we know that they are looking for pay cuts with the four provinces among the Irish players, and they still have a long way to go. IRFU and players' body still pulls apart, with talks on possible pay cuts deadlocked.
It's match reports and a match preview on the Examiner's front page. And swimmer vows to return after 1 year ban for unintentional doping violation. This is the eczema cream that young Irish swimmer Robbie Powell was using. Sport Ireland have accepted the fact that it was an inadvertent breach of doping protocols, and so instead of a 2 year ban, he gets a 1 year ban. He's only 20 and seemed to have a lot of supporting evidence to back up his claim. And there's also an interview with Daniel Tomofte, which I think was done in 2015 by Graham Clifford. That's a good piece you should dig into if you have any more stomach for nostalgia or history. It's not nostalgia, it's history. This is like this. That's a really good piece, and you should dig it out. What am I talking about?
The Times this morning, the Times Ireland, it's sparkling Liverpool on the brink. We know that they will be declared champions tonight if City don't get the job done against Chelsea. So it's kind of lost on me almost how seismic this is going to be, because we've been waiting for Liverpool to be declared champions for so long. It could actually happen tonight. I was 10 years old when Liverpool last lifted what was the old First Division trophy, then a very different trophy to what they could potentially lifting over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, by the close of business tonight, they could be champions. An interesting piece with Frank Lampard. Molly Hudson has written about it. It's in a couple of this morning's papers. Raheem Sterling wrong, says Lampard. And obviously Raheem Sterling was making the point that the opportunity that was afforded by Roman Abramovich to Frank Lampard at Chelsea, a rather inexperienced manager, a very young manager, it's the sort of opportunity that hasn't necessarily been afforded to black managers, Asian managers, or prospective managers in recent years. Lampard saying that yes, Sterling has a point about there aren't simply enough black managers in English football, but that isn't necessarily fair to point the finger at him, saying he deserved the opportunity he was given at Chelsea.
The Irish Times sports section this morning is Martial's hat-trick keeps United on front foot. Palace ransacked as Liverpool close in on long-awaited title, and the match reports from the rest of them there as well. And they've got more Italian 90 stuff on their second page as well this morning.
On the back of the Mirror again, it's all about Liverpool, the Fab Four, the front three as well, all getting their goals last night. Firmino, Mane and Salah. FAI demand to restart. We talked about the Irish rugby situation there. They are still, after marathon talks yesterday, still looking to get an idea as to what the roadmap will be for a return of the League of Ireland. And again, a comment there from Frank Lampard on the comments of Raheem Sterling. Marshall All. Anthony Martial scoring a hat-trick last night, all with his right foot, all within 5 or 6 yards of the goal, all beautifully taken as they gave Sheffield United a bit of a trimming at Old Trafford.
The front of the Star this morning is World Chump. Cartel boss gets KO. Fury sacks Kinahan as his boxing advisor, but then later backs him to be PM. So I think there's probably a bit more to run in that story. And then back pages, it's over to blue. So obviously, Man City need to win tonight. A picture of Sergio Aguero sitting up in bed after knee surgery in Spain, and Lamps hits back at Sterling dig. I mean, I don't think he does hit back so much as try and broaden the conversation. I think. What's next?
Yeah, he hasn't hammered Raheem Sterling. He's just maybe pointed out there's a bit more nuance.
He praised Sterling for speaking up.
Yes, exactly.
2 years before everybody else was doing it. It was kind of, there hasn't been enough people backing Raheem Sterling. It was a point Daniel Harris made on the show. Where were Sterling's teammates? Where was Gareth Southgate? Where was everybody else when Sterling was being attacked by a couple of specific English newspapers they continued to give interviews to those papers. They continued to work with those papers when it was pretty clear that Sterling was being targeted.
Yeah, absolutely. The back of the Irish Daily Mail this morning at the very top, Munster's bruising Bach. Allende has the class and pedigree to spark revival. I think now that the Irish provinces are getting back to training, it's going to be very interesting to see how the two Springboks that are now part of the Munster armoury settle in, because they could really be game changers for them once the season resumes. Obviously, there's a report from the Premier League last night, and there's a mention of Fury and Kinahan, but we spoke about it earlier in the show, Ger, the situation, stark situation now facing the USPGA Tour. Positive test spark wave of withdrawals. Derek Lawrenson says golf is in retreat. We talked about how they haven't necessarily handled it as well as they could and approached it with a certain level of naivety. There's a couple of very big weeks incoming for the PGA Tour.
The front of the Sun, Dan's plan goes down the pan. Bid to arrange big fight KO'd, which I'm not sure, because that big fight's going to happen. So, and the big part of the deal has already, it seems, been negotiated, as in Joshua will fight Tyson Fury, assuming Tyson Fury comes through his next fight, which is the rematch of his previous world title fight, which I suppose, isn't a guarantee, but we'll wait and see for that one. As I said, that story isn't over. Trent Stunner as foursome Reds are almost there. And PGA Tour COVID crisis as the stars pull out. And flirty at 30, David O'Leary is glad he was the man to show the nation a good time 30 years ago. That's quite the headline. On this date in 1990, O'Leary converted the penalty to see off Romania in a World Cup shootout and book Ireland's quarter-final spot at Italia 90. It has not been forgotten, with the former defender recalling a recent encounter with a fan. This young lad said, "I want to buy you a pint. I was conceived after your penalty." There you go.
Too much information, perhaps.
Have you watched the penalty shootout recently? It was on a couple of weeks ago.
I've watched it a few times over the last few years, actually.
It's a good penalty shootout. It's good to watch it in high quality on your TV, as opposed to... it needs to be a good HD copy of it, and I haven't seen one of those on YouTube. But it was good. It was tense. It was proper tense.
Oh, incredibly tense. It went down... Well, we'd 8 consecutive successful penalties before Daniel Timofte stepped up, and overall it was 9 from 10. So I mean, there are very few penalty shootouts nowadays where there's that level of quality. Actually, throughout that World Cup, you remember the quality of the German penalties against England. They were unstoppable. I think Shilton went the right way for all of them, and they didn't get anywhere near saving any of them. But even though you know what happened and the happiest of happy endings that transpired, there's still tension as you're watching it now 30 years later, and the hair is still standing up on the back of the neck, and you're still going, why is David O'Leary coming up to take this penalty? Was there nobody else?
O'Leary playing left back for the last 20 minutes as well. And
he dispatches it just like Alan Shearer or somebody else of his ilk would have done. I'm looking at The Guardian. It's mention of Liverpool as well. Champagne on ice. They sweep past Palace and close in on Coronation. But there's a piece on leisure centres at the moment, which are obviously still closed in the UK, and we are very close to reopening them here over in Ireland. I think the next week certain leisure centres and gyms will be reopened, but the Prime Minister has been warned of generational harm by closed leisure centres. It's Baroness Tanny Gray-Thompson. She's written to the Prime Minister, but saying that a generation will be really struggling for public health if the closure on these leisure centres continues, and I guess that's an issue that's facing children in this country as well.
The Telegraph has a picture of Trent Alexander-Arnold celebrating after his free kick, a beautiful free kick against Palace last night. Vaughan and boycott fear for grassroots. That's a cricket story, and Liverpool on the brink of title glory is the front of the Telegraph for you this morning.
Back of the Herald, let's get it done. It's in our hands now, says pool goal hero Trent. Martial Law fine with Ollie as well after his hat-trick last night. And keep the back door open, a plea to the GAA. The Westmeath senior football manager has requested the GAA do keep some sort of a structure in place whereby counties will have a second chance. Some talk over a completely open draw, some talk over a straight knockout involving the provincial championships that they always stood pre-qualifier era of 2000. But he wants at least some sort of a second bite of the cherry for these counties, particularly if you are the side that is facing Dublin in the Leinster Championship. A straight knockout, old school style, is not exactly what you would be looking for.
Yeah, now I'm given to understand there's going to be a fresh draw made, and we'll have details of all that tomorrow, around about 11 o'clock tomorrow, so that we'll know exactly what the structures are going to be. That they've finalised everything in terms of the hurling and football championships, and full details on that will be coming tomorrow. So I don't know, there was definitely talk that it won't be a backdoor scenario for those teams, which would be a bit heartbreaking really, to have the entire 2020 campaign written off in 70 minutes of football. So sure, look, I suppose any port in a storm. The Irish News is next for us here. Stormont set to fall in line with South over dates for GAA return. I'm sure the temptation to use the word united there was overwhelming. But anyway, crowds at early club games to be capped, and then martial law, and Robinson in mix for Northern Ireland jobs. So there's interviews imminent for the gig with the North.
And last for me is the Racing Post this morning. Bridging the gap, home comforts can help Chelsea trouble inform Chelsea. And the front page of the Racing Post, you can see the Tory delight after his first sit on Derby Hope English King. So it's an interesting one tonight, Jared, because on the face of it, a Sergio Aguero-less Manchester City have pretty much nothing to play for, where Chelsea have everything to play for. So I would say that there's a very good chance Liverpool might be celebrating around about 10 o'clock this evening.
And look, that might be the perfect end to this season as opposed to them actually winning it on the pitch, but it will be disappointing. We're going to talk about that with Kenny Cunningham and Jonathan Walters in just a second. Before that, though, I do want to tell you about this, which is the OTB Sports app. Here is what is on the OTB Sports app this morning for you. Remember, you can pick your own sports, so you get to tailor the feed of news that's coming through for you. Yeah, obviously, we're number one there. There's stuff on Jeff Hendrick, but all of our podcast streams, the 40 podcasts, are all available for you there. You can check out our listen live to the show. You just click that button, or you can listen live to OTB Sports Radio 24 hours a day. There's top quality sports content, either live, the shows that we're doing, or the new podcast that we have, or the brilliant stuff from OTB Gold, which is the 18 years of archives that we have here on Off the Ball. So some absolutely brilliant stuff in there for you. Just search OTB Sports on Google Play or in the App Store and download the app, and you need never leave it again. Right.